So there's one question that I get asked more than anything else on this YouTube channel and on Instagram, and that is, what overdrive should I buy? And I understand why. It's a pretty daunting task. The overdrive market is full of thousands and thousands of different overdrive pedals from different manufacturers, and it can get really overwhelming, really confusing. But after 10, 11 years of buying and selling overdrives and playing lots of different things, I think I've kind of come up with at least what I would call a foolproof method, why is that hard to say? Foolproof method for me when it comes to buying overdrive pedals. So that's what we're gonna talk about in today's video. Before we jump in though, a quick plug. Please subscribe. According to my analytics, over 60% of the people that watch this channel on a regular basis are not subscribed. So it really helps the channel out if you just scroll down, click that red button. You don't have to worry about the bell or anything else. My eventual goal is to get this channel over 1 million subs, and I would appreciate your help in doing that. So thank you so much for the support, and without any further ado, let's take a look at these overdrives. So the whole idea here is to try and simplify this process as much as possible. Like I said in the intro, there's so many different overdrive pedals out there, but the reality is many of them fall into a few different categories. The first is what I would call like a transparent overdrive. Now this is a bit of a buzzword. You'll hear this talked about a lot online and in YouTube videos, but essentially you can think of a transparent overdrive, something like this JHS Morning Glory here, as being something that doesn't alter the sound of the guitar and the amplifier too much. It's adding distortion, it's adding gain to your signal, but it's not necessarily shifting the sound of your guitar. Now, another common type is gonna be what you might call non-transparent overdrives, or overdrives that impart their own kind of sound onto your signal. Something like the Ibanez Tube Screamer here. Now, this is one of the most popular guitar pedals of all time. You see it everywhere, and for good reason. It's a popular pedal. Lots of famous players like John Mayer, Stevie Ray Vaughan have used them to great effect. I'm not a huge fan of them. You can see a video on why here. But the Tube Screamer and the Morning Glory are on two pretty opposite ends of the overdrive spectrum, in that the Morning Glory is very transparent. It's gonna maintain your guitar's sound going into the amp, and the Tube Screamer is not transparent. It's going to imprint its own sound on top, and this is what that sounds like. We'll start with the Morning Glory. I'm playing my Fender Ventera Tele Deluxe into a completely clean amp, my Port City Pearl. So we've got totally clean slate right now. So right off the bat, you can tell a pretty big difference between these two pedals, the transparent versus the non-transparent. The Morning Glory transparent overdrive maintains the Tele's sort of natural spank and twang going into the amp. It's much brighter, it's a little bit lower gain than the Tube Screamer, and the Tube Screamer adds a lot of mid-range back, and this is where Tube Screamers excel. They work really well with single coil guitars going into clean mid-scooped amps that have a lot of low end and a lot of top end, but not a lot of mid-range. So the Tube Screamer sort of imprinted its own sound on top of what was happening. It added a lot of that mid-range back in. Now, another common type of overdrive is based off of a pedal, the Klon. The Klon is another one of the most famous pedals of all time, and it's one of the most cloned and copied. The Klon circuit is everywhere, and they're one of my favorite styles of overdrive because they're incredibly versatile. You can do a lot with them, and they sort of ride the line between being somewhat transparent, but also imparting its own sound. Now, this is the Mythos Mjolnir. This is the Wildwood version. This is built by my friend Zach Broyles over at Mythos, and this is a really, really great Klon. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play all three of these pedals back to back, and you should be able to hear the differences between all three. Last common style of overdrive we're going to talk about in this video is the amp in a box style. And this is really great for a clean pedal platform amp like I'm running right now with the Pearl. Basically, an amp in a box is designed to mimic the overdrive and breakup characteristics of an actual amp. And you can find all different styles of amps. You can have Marshall in a box, Vox in a box, Fenders in a box, or like this, the Vertex Ultraphonics, this is like a Dumble in a box. So the idea here is to not be transparent at all. You want this pedal to impart its own sound, its own EQ curve, and its own distortion characteristics on top of your amp to essentially transform it into a different amp. So those are some common types that you'll see when you're researching overdrives. A lot of times people will refer to, oh, it's a tube screamer, or oh, it's a blues breaker, or a clon, or an amp in a box. And hopefully this gives you a little bit clearer direction of what those actually sound like. Now, when it comes to shopping for overdrives or any piece of guitar gear, I think there's an important question that you should ask yourself, and it's what I want to sound like. Is it your favorite player or favorite solo or favorite record? Well, that's a really good place to start because a quick Google search or a dive on a forum will tell you pretty quickly, more than likely, what that player was using when they recorded X solo or album. The next thing to think about is what type of guitar and amplifier are you running? So far, we've been using a single coil guitar with a super clean Fender style amp, a mid-scooped amp. And in that situation, things like the Tube Screamer and the Ultraphonics and the Mjolnir, the Klon, work really, really well. And this is how I had my rig set up for a long time. I'd have a super clean pedal platform guitar and amp sound. And then I would stack overdrives on top of it to change and shift the character of the amplifier. For example, a Klon in sort of a medium gain setting. So if we turn the gain down, the output down a little bit. And then stacking that with a little bit lighter, transparent overdrive, like the Morning Glory here. But if I switch either the guitar or the amp, now it shifts what type of overdrive I might be looking for to put on my board. So if I switch to a more mid-focused guitar, like a Les Paul with humbuckers, for example, now the Tube Screamer might not be the right choice for me because I've got more mid-range coming from my pickups going into the amplifier. Now, it doesn't sound bad, but to me, I don't like the way the Tube Screamer is working with the humbuckers, so I might lean more towards a transparent overdrive, like the Morning Glory here. I like the way that's a little clearer. The top end is a little more present. The guitar is going to cut through in a band on stage or in the context of a mix or recording. And I mean, like I said earlier, a Klon style overdrive you really can't go wrong with in almost any situation. Also, the way your amp is set up has a huge impact on what overdrive you should put on your board. So I've switched from my super clean Fender style mid-scooped amp to a dirtier British style amp, my RSA 23 down here, and you can immediately hear a difference. There's no overdrives on the board. This is all just amp. So immediately you can hear the difference. There's a lot of gain coming from the amp, and it's more mid-rangey. Even though I'm playing a Telecaster with single coils, there's a lot of punchy mid-range coming from the amplifier. So I think immediately the Tube Screamer is out because there's already enough mid-range. We don't need any more from the pedal. But again, to me, that's not really the sound I'm looking for. We go back to the Morning Glory here, though. check out the Klon. Now, if I were actually overdrive shopping, the Klon would be the winner. I like the way it's interacting with the amp and the guitar. It's adding some extra gain, but it's not overpowering anywhere in the frequency spectrum. There's not too much low end that's falling apart. It's not adding too much mid-range, and it's not too bright either. And this is the next point. Try stuff out. The only way to find the right overdrive is to actually play a bunch of different pedals with your guitar and your amplifier. If you have a good store near you, like I'm lucky to have, take your guitar into the store and find an amp there that's pretty similar to what you play. Or you can even bring your amp. I used to do that all the time. I would take my Pearl down to Atlanta Discount Music with my guitar, and I'd sit and play overdrives for a few hours. And that's how I found things like the BB preamp, which I loved for years, the AxeFx box of rock, which I also had for a really long time. I brought my guitar and my amp down to the store, and I actually heard the way they interacted, and it did exactly what I needed it to do. Or if you're shopping online, places like Sweetwater, this is not sponsored by the way, but places like Sweetwater that have return policies, take advantage of it. Buy a pedal online, try it out and see if it works. And if it doesn't, you've got that 30-day window to send it back and try something else. Also, buying used on places like Reverb or Craigslist is a really good method as well. If a pedal is used, its market value is probably going to hold relatively steady. They don't depreciate all that much. So you can put your money into a pedal, try it out, and then if it's not working out, put it right back up on the used market. As long as it's in good shape and you haven't torn it up or lost the box or anything, you should be good to go to get your money back out of it. And over the last 10 years of doing that, I've probably owned and swapped well over 100 overdrives. And through doing that, I've found what I like. I know that I'm not a fan of tube screamers because of the style of guitars and amps and music that I play. It's just not for me. I tend to like more transparent, light to medium gain overdrives, like blues breaker circuits, like Klon circuits, and I do like a lot of amp in a box circuits as well, preamp style overdrives, if you will. So those are some tips for finding the right overdrive. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments section down below. Do you have any questions? And if you're an experienced player, you're an experienced overdrive purchaser, jump in the comments and help some of the beginners out. If you're interested in any of the pedals that I talked about or played in today's video, I will have links in the description box. Some of those will be affiliate links. Those are marked. If you buy something through one of those links, I earn a small commission, which helps me out in running the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget to click subscribe. It also helps the channel, and check out my video courses like the new chords and rhythm course in the description box down below as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Rhett Shull, and remember, there is no plan B.